Told me to wear something modest to his wedding. So I walked in with the real bride. My name is Elena Martinez, and I'm 26 years old. I always thought love was supposed to be unconditional, but nothing prepared me for the text message that would change everything. Elena, please wear something modest to the wedding. Nothing too flashy. We want to keep things classy. Daniel Clark, my boyfriend of 3 years, was getting married. Not to me, to someone else. And he had the audacity to invite me to watch. If you're watching this, drop a comment letting me know where you're viewing from. Hit that like and subscribe button if you've ever been betrayed by someone you trusted completely. Trust me, this revenge story will make you believe in karma again. It all started 6 months ago, when Daniel dropped the bombshell that shattered my world. We were having dinner at our favorite Italian restaurant in downtown Seattle, the same place where he'd first told me he loved me 2 years earlier. I was expecting a proposal. We'd been talking about marriage for months, looking at apartments together, planning our future. Instead, he ordered the most expensive bottle of wine on the menu and delivered the news that would destroy everything I thought I knew about my life. Elena, there's something I need to tell you, he began, his voice uncharacteristically formal. My parents have arranged a marriage for me. I laughed at first, thinking it was some kind of joke. Daniel was a successful tech entrepreneur, American-born despite his traditional Chinese parents. The idea of an arranged marriage seemed absurd in 2024. That's funny, Daniel. Now what did you really want to talk about? His expression remained serious. I'm not joking, Elena. Her name is Lily Jiang. She's from a prominent family in Hong Kong. Our families have been discussing this arrangement for over a year. The wine glass slipped from my hand, shattering against the marble floor. Other diners turned to stare, but I barely noticed. A year? You've known about this for a year? I thought I could get out of it, he said quietly, avoiding my eyes. I thought if I proved myself successful enough, if I built my company bigger, they'd respect my choices. But the merger with Jiang Industries depends on this marriage. My family's entire financial future is tied to it. I stared at him in disbelief. What about our future, Daniel? What about everything we've planned together? Elena, you have to understand. This isn't just about me. My parents immigrated here with nothing. My father worked 18-hour days to build his business. My mother cleaned offices at night to pay for my education. I can't throw that away for... For what? I demanded. For love? For me? He flinched at my tone. It's not that simple. It's exactly that simple, I said, standing up. You either choose me or you choose them. You can't have both. That's when he said the words that would haunt me for months. Elena, please try to understand. This marriage is just business. It doesn't change how I feel about you. We can still see each other. Lily knows it's just an arrangement. She has her own life in Hong Kong. The restaurant fell silent around us as I processed what he was suggesting. You want me to be your mistress? I want you to be realistic about the situation, he replied. These kinds of arrangements are common in my culture. Love and marriage don't always go together. I grabbed my purse and coat, my hands shaking with rage and humiliation. Your culture? You were born in Bellevue, Daniel. You went to Stanford. You drive a Tesla and eat quinoa bowls for lunch. Don't hide behind culture to justify being a coward. As I headed for the door, he called after me. Elena, think about it, please. I'll call you in a few days when you've had time to process this. I didn't look back. The next 3 months were the darkest period of my life. I threw myself into my work as a freelance photographer, taking on every wedding and event I could book. The irony wasn't lost on me, spending my days capturing other people's happiest moments while my own heart was shattered. Daniel called and texted constantly at first, sending flowers to my apartment, showing up at my favorite coffee shop. Each message was a variation of the same theme. He loved me. The marriage was just business. We could make it work if I was just willing to be reasonable. I blocked his number after the 10th bouquet of apology roses arrived with a note saying, "I'm getting married in 6 months, but you're the only one I want to be with." My best friend, Sophia, a divorce attorney with a scorched earth approach to relationships, was less diplomatic in her advice. "Elena, he's not choosing you because he doesn't value you enough to fight for you. Period. End of story. Delete his number, block him everywhere, and move on." But moving on felt impossible when Seattle was full of memories of us together. The Pike Place Market, where we'd spent lazy Saturday mornings. The waterfront, where he'd kissed me for the first time. The climbing gym, where we'd challenged each other to reach new heights, literally and figuratively. I was just starting to feel like I might survive this heartbreak when the wedding invitation arrived. It was elegant, expensive, and completely infuriating. Heavy cream cardstock with gold embossing announcing the marriage of Daniel Clark to Lily Jiang at the Fairmont Olympic Hotel's Spanish ballroom. The same venue where we'd attended his business partner's wedding just 8 months earlier, where he'd whispered in my ear about how beautiful I'd look walking down that same aisle. Inside the invitation was a handwritten note. "Eleanor, I know this is difficult, but your friendship means everything to me. Please come. I need you there." I stared at the invitation for hours, cycling through disbelief, anger, and something approaching morbid curiosity. What kind of person invites their ex-girlfriend to their wedding? What kind of person calls it friendship when they'd offered to keep me as a mistress? Sophia was horrified when I told her. "You're not seriously considering going to this train wreck, are you?" "I don't know," I admitted. "Part of me wants to see him miserable. Part of me wants closure." "Eleanor, honey, there's no closure at your ex's wedding. There's only humiliation and regret." But I couldn't stop thinking about it. For weeks, I debated whether to RSVP yes or no. Finally, curiosity won. I wanted to see the woman Daniel had chosen over me. I wanted to understand what made her worth abandoning 3 years of our relationship. 3 weeks before the wedding, Daniel texted me from a new number I hadn't blocked yet. "I saw you RSVP'd, yes. Thank you for being mature about this. Can we talk before the wedding? There are some things I want to explain." Against my better judgment, I agreed to meet him for coffee. He suggested the Starbucks near my apartment, which felt like a calculated insult, reducing our relationship to a casual encounter at a chain coffee shop. He looked good, which annoyed me. Success suited him. His company had grown exponentially since we'd broken up, probably thanks to the anticipated merger with Jiang Industries. He wore a new watch, an expensive suit, and the confident smile of a man whose life was falling into place exactly as planned. "You look beautiful," he said as I sat down across from him. "You always do." "Don't," I said firmly. "Just say whatever you came here to say." He leaned forward, his expression earnest. "Eleanor, I want you to know that none of this changes how I feel about you. Lily she's nice. She's suitable. But she's not you." "Then why are you marrying her?" "Because I have to," he said, frustration creeping into his voice. "Because my parents sacrificed everything for my success, and this marriage secures not just my future, but theirs. Because sometimes adults have to make difficult choices." "Adults make choices, Daniel. Children have choices made for them." He ran his hand through his hair, a gesture I knew meant he was getting defensive. "You're oversimplifying this." "Am I? Or are you overcomplicating it to avoid admitting you're choosing money over love?" "It's not about money. It's about family obligations, cultural expectations. It's about you being a coward," I interrupted. "You're 28 years old, Daniel. You built a successful company from nothing. You're not some helpless victim of circumstance. You're making a choice. And that choice is to marry someone you don't love because it's easier than disappointing your parents. He was quiet for a long moment, staring into his coffee cup. When he looked up, his expression had hardened. Fine. Maybe you're right. Maybe I am choosing the easy path. But that's the path I'm on now, and I can't change it. You could change it. You just won't. Elena, please. I'm asking you to understand. I'm asking you to forgive me. I'm not going to make you feel better about this decision, Daniel. That's when his tone shifted, becoming more controlling, more manipulative. Look, since you're coming to the wedding, I need to ask you something. Please dress modestly. Nothing too flashy or attention-grabbing. Lily's family is very traditional, and I don't want there to be any complications. I stared at him in disbelief. Complications? You know what I mean. You're beautiful. You have a presence. I just want to keep things peaceful. You want me to make myself invisible so your new wife doesn't feel threatened? I want you to be respectful of the situation. The audacity was breathtaking. He was asking me to dim my light at his wedding to another woman, to make myself small and forgettable so his business arrangement could proceed smoothly. Of course, I said sweetly. I'll be very modest, very respectful. He looked relieved. Thank you, Eleanor. I knew you'd understand. I smiled and stood up. I should go. I have a lot to prepare for. As I walked away, I heard him call after me. Elena, we're good, right? I didn't turn around. We're perfect, Daniel. But we weren't perfect. We were about to be catastrophic. That night, I called Sophia and told her about the coffee meeting. She was silent for a long moment after I finished. He asked you to dress modestly to his wedding to another woman. He did. Elena, please tell me you're not actually going to this wedding. Oh, I'm going, I said, but not the way he expects. What do you mean? I mean, Daniel is about to learn that some things are more important than business arrangements. I spent the next 3 weeks planning, not planning my outfit, planning my revenge. It started with research. Daniel's fiancée, Lily Jiang, was exactly what I'd expected. Beautiful, accomplished, and completely unaware of her fiancé's true character. Her Instagram showed a life of luxury and privilege, private jets, designer clothes, charity galas in Hong Kong. She was a marketing executive for her father's company, spoke 4 languages, and had graduated from Wharton. She was also, according to her social media posts, deeply in love with Daniel and excited about their upcoming wedding and new life in Seattle. What she didn't know was that Daniel had spent the last 6 months trying to convince me to be his mistress after their marriage. I screenshot every text message, every voicemail, every email Daniel had sent me since announcing his engagement. The messages where he professed his love for me. The ones where he suggested we could figure out an arrangement after his marriage. The voicemail where he'd called me crying, saying he was making the biggest mistake of his life. But evidence wasn't enough. I needed a delivery method that would ensure maximum impact and minimum opportunity for Daniel to spin the narrative. That's when I remembered something Daniel had mentioned during our coffee meeting. Lily was arriving in Seattle 3 days before the wedding with her family. They were staying at the Fairmont Olympic Hotel, the same venue as the wedding. I booked a room at the same hotel. The night before the wedding, I put my plan into action. I'd learned from Lily's Instagram that she was having a small bachelorette dinner with her bridesmaids at the hotel's restaurant. I made a reservation for the same time, requesting a table with a clear view of theirs. Lily was even more beautiful in person than in her photos. She wore a simple but elegant black dress, her long dark hair styled in perfect waves. She was laughing with her friends, raising a glass of champagne in a toast, glowing with the happiness of a woman about to marry the love of her life. I felt a pang of sympathy for her. She had no idea what kind of man she was marrying. After dinner, I followed her group to the hotel bar. They were celebrating, taking photos, talking excitedly about the next day's ceremony. I waited until Lily went to the restroom alone, then approached her at the sink. "Lily?" I said softly. She turned, smiling politely. "Yes? My name is Elena Martinez. I think we need to talk." Her smile faltered slightly. "I'm sorry. Do we know each other?" "Not exactly, but we have someone in common. Daniel." The color drained from her face. "I don't understand." "Could we speak privately? It's important." She stared at me for a long moment, then nodded. "There's a quiet lounge on the mezzanine level." 5 minutes later, we sat across from each other in the dimly lit lounge. Lily's composure was admirable. She maintained perfect posture and a calm expression, but I could see her hands trembling slightly as she folded them in her lap. "What did you want to tell me?" she asked. I pulled out my phone and began showing her the messages. "Daniel and I dated for 3 years. We only broke up 6 months ago when he told me about your engagement." Her face remained impassive as she read, but I watched her swallow hard when she reached the messages where Daniel professed his love for me and suggested I could be his mistress after their marriage. "These are from when?" she asked quietly. "The most recent ones are from 2 weeks ago." She was quiet for a long time, scrolling through the evidence. Finally, she looked up at me. "Why are you showing me this?" "Because you deserve to know who you're marrying, because no woman should walk down the aisle to a man who's already planning to cheat on her." "And what do you get out of this?" Her voice was steady, but there was steel beneath it. "Honestly, revenge. Daniel asked me to dress modestly to your wedding so I wouldn't upstage you or cause complications. He wanted me to make myself invisible while he married you for your family's money." For the first time, Lily's composure cracked. "He said that?" "He did. He also said your marriage was just business, that it didn't change his feelings for me." Lily stood up abruptly, pacing to the window overlooking the city. "I knew this was an arranged marriage," she said finally. "I'm not naive, but I hoped that he cared for me, that we could build something real together." "Maybe you could have, if he'd been honest with you. But Lily, he's been lying to both of us." She turned back to me. "What do you want from me?" "I want you to make an informed decision about tomorrow. If you choose to marry him knowing all this, that's your choice. But you should have all the information." Lily was quiet for another long moment. Then, to my surprise, she smiled. It wasn't a happy smile. It was the smile of a woman who just decided to take control of her own narrative. "Eleanor," she said, "how would you like to help me send a message?" The next morning, the day of Daniel's wedding, I woke up with a sense of anticipation I hadn't felt since before he'd broken my heart. Lily had asked me to meet her in her suite at 10 a.m. to discuss the plan we'd hatched the night before. When I arrived, I found her sitting calmly at the room's dining table, still in her silk pajamas, sipping tea. Her wedding dress hung on the closet door, a stunning creation of ivory silk and delicate beading that probably cost more than my car. "Good morning," she said. "Did you sleep well?" "Surprisingly, yes." "You?" "Like a baby." She smiled. "I've never felt more certain about a decision in my life." We spent the next hour finalizing our plan. It was elegantly simple and devastatingly effective. At 2 p.m., guests began arriving at the Fairmont Olympic Hotel's Spanish ballroom. I watched from the mezzanine as Seattle's elite filed in tech executives, prominent business families, and what appeared to be half of Hong Kong's social register. The Jiang family had spared no expense. The ballroom was transformed into a winter wonderland with thousands of white flowers, crystal chandeliers, and enough candles to illuminate a small city. Daniel stood at the altar looking nervous but handsome in his custom tuxedo. His best man, his business partner David, kept checking his watch and whispering reassurances. The groom's side was filled with his colleagues and family, all beaming with pride at the marriage that would secure the Clark family's financial future. The bride's side was more formal, filled with elegantly dressed Chinese families speaking in hushed Mandarin. Mr. Jiang, Lily's father, looked like a man about to close the deal of a lifetime. At 2:30, the music began. The bridesmaids processed down the aisle in flowing champagne-coloured gowns, each carrying a bouquet of white peonies. They looked perfect, smiling serenely as they took their places. The wedding march began, and everyone stood, turning toward the back of the ballroom to watch the bride's entrance. That's when our plan began. Instead of Lily appearing at the back of the ballroom, I walked in. I wasn't dressed modestly as Daniel had requested. I wore a stunning red silk dress that hugged every curve, with a dramatic train that swept behind me as I walked. My dark hair was styled in old Hollywood waves, and I'd hired a professional makeup artist to ensure I looked absolutely radiant. But I wasn't alone. On my arm was Lily Jiang, still in her wedding dress, but carrying a bouquet of red roses instead of white. The gasps from the congregation were audible. Daniel's face went from confusion to horror to panic in the span of seconds. His mother, seated in the front row, actually stood up and began speaking rapidly in Mandarin to her husband. Lily and I walked slowly down the aisle together, giving everyone plenty of time to absorb what they were seeing. Cameras flashed as wedding guests tried to capture the most dramatic entrance in Seattle society history. When we reached the altar, Daniel was visibly shaking. What is this?" he whispered. Lily stepped forward, still holding my arm. "This, Daniel, is honesty." She turned to address the congregation, her voice carrying clearly through the ballroom's acoustics. "Ladies and gentlemen, I apologize for the confusion. There's been a change of plans." She nodded to the wedding coordinator who, after a moment of hesitation, handed her the microphone. "My name is Lily Jiang, and I was supposed to marry Daniel Clark today. However, I've recently learned some information that's changed my perspective on this union." Daniel grabbed her arm. "Lily, please, let's discuss this privately." She pulled away from him. "We had our chance to discuss things privately, Daniel. Last night, when Elena showed me the messages you've been sending her for the past 6 months." The ballroom erupted in whispers. Mrs. Clark was now openly crying, while Mr. Jiang's face had turned an alarming shade of red. Lily continued, her voice steady and strong. "Messages where you professed your love for her. Messages where you suggested she could be your mistress after our marriage. Messages where you called our engagement a business arrangement that didn't change your feelings for her." She gestured to me. "This is Elena Martinez, Daniel's girlfriend of 3 years. The woman he chose to stay with while planning to marry me for my family's money." Daniel tried to interrupt, but Lily held up her hand. "I'm not finished." She reached into her bouquet and pulled out a folder. "These are copies of every text message, every email, every voicemail Daniel sent to Elena since our engagement was announced. They're also being sent to everyone in this room via email as we speak." That's when phones throughout the ballroom began chiming with notifications. You see, Lily continued, Daniel asked Elena to dress modestly to our wedding so she wouldn't cause complications. He wanted her to make herself invisible while he married me for my family's connections. She looked directly at Daniel, who was now pale and speechless. But some women refuse to be invisible. Some women refuse to be used. She turned back to the congregation. I'm sorry you all traveled so far for a wedding that isn't happening, but I couldn't, in good conscience, marry a man who's been lying to both of us. Mr. Jiang rose from his seat, his face thunderous. In heavily accented English, he said, Mr. Clark, you have disgraced both our families. Daniel's father stood as well, his own face a mask of humiliation and rage. Daniel, how could you do this to us? Daniel was staring at me, his expression a mixture of betrayal and anger. Eleanor, how could you do this? That's when I took the microphone from Lily. How could I do this? I repeated. Daniel, you invited me to watch you marry another woman for money. You asked me to dress modestly so I wouldn't outshine your business arrangement. You spent 6 months trying to convince me to be your mistress. I looked out at the shocked faces in the audience. Ladies and gentlemen, I apologize for the dramatic entrance. But when a man asks you to make yourself invisible at his wedding to another woman, sometimes the best response is to make yourself absolutely unforgettable. I handed the microphone back to Lily, who smiled at me before addressing the crowd one final time. There will be no wedding today. There will be no merger between Jiang Industries and Clark Enterprises. And there will be no future between Daniel and either of us. She began walking back down the aisle, still holding my arm. The crowd parted before us, some applauding, others too shocked to react. As we reached the back of the ballroom, I heard Daniel call my name one final time. I turned back to see him standing alone at the altar, his groomsmen having stepped away in embarrassment, his family looking at him with expressions of disappointment and shame. Eleanor, he called out, his voice breaking. This isn't how it was supposed to end. No, Daniel, I replied, my voice carrying across the silent ballroom. This is exactly how it was supposed to end. Lily and I walked out of the ballroom together, leaving behind the wreckage of Daniel's carefully constructed life and the beginning of our own. In the hotel lobby, Lily turned to me with a genuine smile. Thank you, she said simply. Thank you, I replied, for believing me, for having the courage to walk away. What will you do now? She asked. I'm not sure. What about you? I'm going home to Hong Kong. I have a business to run, and apparently I'm single again. She laughed, a sound of pure freedom. What about you? I think I'll stay in Seattle. I have a photography business to build, and apparently I'm free to be as unforgettable as I want to be. We hugged goodbye in the hotel lobby, two women who had started the day as rivals and ended it as allies. As I walked to my car, I reflected on the events of the past 6 months. Daniel had broken my heart, but in doing so, he'd also broken the spell that had kept me accepting less than I deserved. He'd asked me to be modest, to be invisible, to be small. Instead, I'd learned to be magnificent. 6 months later, I received an invitation to another wedding Lily's. She was marrying a successful architect in Hong Kong, a man who, according to the wedding website, had been courting her properly for years before she'd agreed to the arranged marriage with Daniel. I sent her a beautiful crystal vase and a note to a woman who refuses to be invisible. She sent back a photo from her honeymoon with a note of her own, to a woman who taught me the power of choosing myself. As for Daniel, his business empire crumbled without the Jiang family backing. The merger fell through, several investors pulled out, and within a year, he'd been forced to sell his company at a significant loss. I heard through mutual friends that he'd moved to Portland, starting over with a small consulting firm. He never tried to contact me again. I built my photography business into one of Seattle's most sought-after studios, specializing in weddings, ironically enough. I became known for capturing authentic moments, for helping couples tell their true stories. And I never, ever made myself small for anyone again. The day Daniel asked me to dress modestly to his wedding was the day I decided to live boldly instead. Sometimes the best revenge isn't getting even, it's becoming everything they said you couldn't be. If you've ever been asked to dim your light for someone else's comfort, I hope my story gives you courage. Have you ever had to choose between making yourself small or making yourself free? I'd love to hear your experiences in the comments below. And if this story resonated with you, please hit that like button, subscribe for more true life stories, and share with someone who might need to know that they deserve to be chosen first, not hidden away. Remember, sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is refuse to be invisible. Thank you for listening, and may you never let anyone convince you to be less than magnificent.